Being shortly after 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the prayer? Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Belanger.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Leahy.
Here.
Councilor Leary.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Rourke.
Here.
Councilor Samaras.
Here.
It's 9 present.
Okay, the first order of business is the minutes of the City Council meeting of November 21st for acceptance. We have a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Samaras, seconded by Councilor Leahy. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is a vote to reappoint the city clerk. There's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading, reappointing Michael Q. Geary to the position of city clerk. Do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve by Councilor Leary, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Discussion, roll call.
Councilor Belanger.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Leary.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Samaras.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. I just want to let the folks know, the people watching, that we certainly voted for Mr. Geary, but we also went through the evaluation process. So it wasn't just a vote. We got comments back on a form filled out, I think, a few weeks ago. So I just want to let the people know that we did evaluate his performance, and that's why we're voting tonight. Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we go any further, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege in regards to the open house that was held this evening from 4 to 6.
Go ahead, Councilor.
And I know that when you look in this room, it's very festive. When you look at the different departments, everybody came together, and it's a wonderful job. And I noticed that the attendance here this evening was something to behold, which was hardly anybody here. Even Santa asked where the children were. I'd never seen anything like it. We have so much to offer in this building, and yet I don't even know how the word get out. I know that I talked to some people that are head of neighborhood groups. They never knew anything about it, so I don't know how this message ever got out. If it got out on Facebook, not everybody has Facebook. I certainly don't. And do you know why I was here a little earlier? I was here because I inadvertently called the city election officer, Etta Magic, and I asked her about a particular item that I wanted to discuss. And she says, oh, I'll see you tonight. I said, oh, are you going to be at the city council meeting? She said, no. Don't you know about the open house? I knew nothing about the open house. A lot of my colleagues knew nothing about the open house, but all the councilors-elect knew about the open house. I don't understand how some of us are not treated like everybody else, and I take exception to that. I've been here for 22 years, and I have never, ever been disrespected the way that I have been disrespected this evening, and I don't appreciate it, and I'm not going to stand for it, and I'm not going to ever be quiet when I feel slighted. Not only me, but some of my colleagues, and so I looked on email to see if I got an email from your office, Mr. Mayor. I get nothing. I get nothing. If it went on Facebook, many people here know that I don't have Facebook, so I'm taken aback by the slight that was shown, not just to me, but for my colleagues. And if you don't believe me, ask some of my colleagues if they have the courage that I do to say that they never were notified either. Another councilor happened to call the city manager's office, and he asked if there was a subcommittee meeting tonight. He said no, but there is an open house. He found out through the manager's office that there was an open house. I'm very upset about it, and I'm never going to I'm very, very fortunate that I have a microphone, because in the next 2 years, I'm good, if I have to use it, I certainly will. You could take that to the bank. I'm very disappointed.
I will take that to the bank, council, but I also would point out that I did not plan the open house, nor did I set the date for the open house, nor did I invite anybody to the open house. The open house planning and everything else that went on happened through the manager's office, not through the mayor's office.
Well, it's funny that the manager didn't notify the councilors-elect, and yet they were here. I understand from some of the department heads that your assistant, Jim, notified the city through probably Facebook or something, but he couldn't take the chance to notify the whole council? You would have
Once
thought
again-
that would have been part of his duties.
Once again,
I've been
Counselor,
here too as a mayor, so I know who runs open house.
Well,
And if you
the
want to
mayor's
say it
office
wasn't
doesn't
you.
run the open house. I did not run the open house. I did not choose this date for the open house, and I did not invite anybody to the
But
open
it's
house.
funny you knew about open house and you didn't share it with any of us. But if you want to say you knew nothing, but it's funny
Well, I'm
you
not
were here.
saying I knew nothing. What I'm saying
We
is.
knew nothing. Some
what
of
I'm
us
saying
knew
is that I
nothing.
did not have the responsibility to tell anybody about the open
Well,
house. and I
sometimes we
did
think
not do
outside of the
that.
box, and we do have a little courtesy to notify our colleagues.
Well,
We're all supposed to be a part of a team, but evidently we're not.
I would have assumed that the city manager's office would have done that.
Well, I would have assumed the mayor's aide would have known enough to do that, because he did notify some department heads, but
Well,
not
maybe he
any of
did-
us.
Maybe he did notify some department heads, but it wasn't his responsibility either.
Oh, I know, everybody stands back and says, it's not my job, then nothing gets done, right? That's what I wanted to tell you, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
Well, I'm just glad that the evening previous to your remarks went a lot more smoothly than your remarks. But once again,
There was
it
nobody
not my
here.
responsibility.
There was nobody here tonight. Where were all the children? That's
There
what
were-
Santa wanted to know.
Counselor Elliott.
All I do know is none of us were notified, and I agree with Council Mercer. I was taken aback. I just happened to come here early. And I think it's a good opportunity for us. It's an open house to let the people of the city know. I know for the last 3 years, we all knew about it. And I'm not sure what happened tonight, but it's frustrating that, it's for the people. It's not for the city councilors. And, it was nice we gave out awards, but this was an opportunity for people to come down to their city hall to enjoy, there was food, Santa was here, all the offices decorate. So I think that's the frustration that, and I don't think it's just this one, Mr. Mayor, it just seems to be a lot of events that we're not aware of. And to me, and maybe it's a different philosophy, I understand, but, that is a role of the mayor's office, to let us know, the colleagues know what is going on. So that, maybe it's just a personal opinion, but whether it's the manager or you, it was a collaboration when we started it, and it should be, and they were very successful. And I think that's perhaps, that's the frustration that we didn't know about it. I know we got a lot of other business to do, but it's also a time for celebration, and I think it's important for all of us to be able to know and to
about it.
participate. So,
If you didn't know about it, what made you come?
Mr. Mayor, I just told you, I just happened to come here early.
Okay.
I just got off the train from Boston, and I came here early to find that there was a celebration, so.
Again, I did not invite anybody to the open house. I did not organize the open house. I did not pick the day of the open
Well,
house.
shouldn't we be inviting the entire city?
I'm not
guess that's
saying
the
that people shouldn't be invited. What I'm saying is that the responsibility lies with the city manager's office, not with the mayor's office. And that's how that goes. All the decorations and everything, and Santa Claus and everything else that happens here happens because of the city manager. It doesn't happen because of me. I didn't arrange for any Santa Claus or anything else. I didn't arrange for the Lowell High School Choir. I didn't arrange for any of this. I just showed up like you guys did. And that's it. But since your remarks included, there seem to be other events that you're not included. What are those other events that you haven't been notified about?
There are many, Mr. Mayor. That's neither here nor there. It's
Well,
just,
can you
it's
name
important.
Can you name one?
We used to get multiple, look, the point was about is about this event tonight. That's all. There's some frustration. We would have liked to have been here to participate and to know about it. That's all.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on.
Yes, I have one more thing to
Go
say.
ahead, Councilor Mercia.
2 weeks ago, I got a paper on my desk, and it said an event about October 27th, and we were into November. I take exception to that. That's not being on the ball, and I asked someone else on this council, they said they noticed the same thing.
What event was that?
I didn't bring it with me, because I didn't think I'd ever talk about it.
I don't recall any event.
Well, I'm sure you don't, but anyway, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to, being before 7 o'clock, we'll move on to communications from the city manager. The first of those is the status on low-riding cars. Is there any discussion on the status of low-riding cars? Council Leary.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report, and thanks to the city manager and the chief. Could you just have the chief kind of describe when we went through this analysis? Because I've received phone calls from a constituent daily regarding the efforts, or in their mind, the perception of lack of effort. And I'd like to really walk through the report. I know it's a pain in the neck doing that, but I think it's important. What I learned from the report, there's a lot of effort actually pulling these type of vehicles over, more than I had even thought. So I don't know if the chief could actually go through that and just explain exactly what they've done and how we adhere to what the Massachusetts statutes are. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to the City Council. There's a general category of criminal violations that we enforce that kind of goes along with this. One of them specifically that you mentioned is the altered height. There's a certain height that is required. The vehicle can only be at a certain height, plus or minus. And for that particular violation, we have generated 42 citations in the previous year. There's another one, harsh and objectionable noise, people that alter their muffler, things like that. We wrote 79 violations for that particular offense last year. Tires extended beyond the fenders, so that's a very serious violation because it can cause a lot of damage to pedestrians and bicycles and things like that. That totaled 48 violations. And the other one, which is very prevalent that we run into quite frequently, is tinted windows. So that's a safety hazard not only for pedestrians, other motor vehicles, and police officers if they have to stop the vehicle and they can't see into the people that are inside the vehicle. We wrote 238 violations. So when you take those violations, you add it all up together, it's generally over $600,000 in violations that the police department has written in the last year, just for those particular violations. So we do, on a continual basis, cite people for these offenses, Counselor, and we're always on the lookout for it.
No, and I think just to follow up on a quick question through the mayor to the chief, we're following the Massachusetts statutes, correct? We're not deviating from them. If it requires to remove a vehicle from the street, we remove the vehicle from the street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think just the number of violations is extraordinary. 79 violations just for the type of vehicle it's a lot for one area. When I saw that number, I thought you were going to come in like with very few, single digits even. But that does show that it's a good combination of the Lowell Police Department and I guess the state police as well, and the UMass Lowell Police are involved in that. And I think the constituent who had this, I guess obviously it's a legitimate complaint because there's so numerous violations with it, and the dollar value is extraordinary. But the key, I think, that individual was articulating to me is that we're not following the statute, but that's not the case, correct?
That's correct, and those violation numbers do not include the state police. That's just Lowell police personnel.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Council Milonato.
Through you to the chief. Thank you, chief, for that update. When you pull a car over that has some of these violations, do you typically check the inspection sticker to see if the inspection sticker is a valid sticker?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay. And do we ever follow up with, again, it's gotten back to some of the councils that there may be inspection stations that are overlooking some of these violations and they're issuing inspection stickers even though these violations exist on these vehicles. Have you found that to be the case?
Well, I think what I can tell you is within the past several months, the state has significantly upgraded the inspection process to include video surveillance equipment in each inspection station. So hopefully any of those locations or operators that weren't, being proactive in doing the inspection appropriately, I think that hopefully has gone away with the addition of these video surveillance systems that the state has mandated.
Again, as Councilor Leary said, we are doing this according to the state statute, so that's
right.
important. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council Leahy.
Just to follow up, Chief, does the state law allow you to, so you pull a car over and it's got tinted windows or something like that, it doesn't allow you to take the sticker off or put a rejection sticker on it, make them go back to?
No, No. They have a certain amount of time to go into court, and then generally speaking, with things like tinted windows, when they go before the magistrate or the judge, if they appeal it, they have to show that they've removed the tinted windows, so.
Okay. Yeah, to get the new, okay.
Right.
And generally, they do or they don't get towed, it depends on the situation?
For something like that, they probably wouldn't get towed if that's the only violation. But as you can see, it's a pretty substantial financial penalty. It's $250.
Yeah,
So-
okay. All right, thank you.
Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate the report, but Mr. Mayor, through you to the chief, who's still at the podium. Now, Chief, one common denominator with these lowriders is that they typically have loud exhausts, which I often get complaints of in congested neighborhoods, these loud mufflers, and they would never pass inspection in this. So what are they doing? Are they switching off once they get the inspection sticker? And question one, and two, are we able to enforce that as well with loud exhausts?
Well, Counselor, we do have a number of violations for harsh and objectionable noise, which is the loud exhaust. And I think typically what you see is somebody will get an inspection sticker, then alter the motor vehicle, which causes the violation. But again, as I indicated, within the past several months, the state has significantly increased the standards at all the inspection stations across the state to include video surveillance. So I think the operators of the inspection stickers are on notice that they have to strictly adhere to the inspection process and check everything, or they could do, if they don't, they certainly are in peril of losing that state certification.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief.
Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Chief, this is good news because I know that many of us have filed this motion because it's one of these, I mean, we have an ordinance because it's, you know, sort of invasion of people's quality of life as well. I'm sure it's very hard, but, you know, one of the complaints that I receive, and I know many of my colleagues have received, are the noise, the music coming out of these vehicles as well. And how do we stop that? I know there's an ordinance,
Right.
but is it one of these things that you have to catch them in the act and?
You do. Basically, the noise being generated by music, I think is a little bit more difficult for us
Right.
to enforce. I think it depends on the time of day and the location. Clearly, if it's after approximately 10 o'clock in the evening, those are considered nighttime hours,
Right.
generally speaking, for all the statutes across the state. And so after 10 o'clock at night, people, have to act accordingly and bring the music down.
And those are the complaints, and I don't know how we address it, but it's very frustrating for people. There are some that we continue to get calls because they drive, on main thoroughfares, main streets where people live, as you mentioned, in the evening hours, and it's, it's very frustrating that people will not be considerate, but,
Well, we have to keep up the enforcement efforts, I guess.
right, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to item B, the crosswalk on High Street. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the four-way stop at the intersection of Riverside and Spark Street. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll move on to safety patrols by Kerouac Park. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the report. This was a motion I made a couple months ago from the residents at the Fairborn Building right there at the intersection with Connie Square. And this really had a lot of illegal activity taking place, which has since been cleaned up through the chief and his patrolman's efforts. So that is good news. But Chief, now what can we attribute this to? Have you beefed up patrols there? I see from the report that you have assigned patrols there with overtime and grants and whatnot. And so how are things going?
Through you, Mayor, to Councilor Belanger, we have increased our patrol efforts in that area, and you can see since approximately Labor Day, the number of calls have been significantly reduced. The other thing that we have done is worked with other city agencies, whether it's the Health Department or Inspectional Services, to try and tackle some of the environmental issues there, the Parks Department, to see if we can make the entire quality the whole experience of that park better, right? So we have to keep up our job, the enforcement efforts in that area. The other thing that we're looking into doing is putting a video surveillance camera there. It's a little bit difficult because of when the foliage is up on the trees there's a relatively low canopy. I think most people understand that. So to put a video surveillance system, we're looking into some unique applications, and we're looking at kind of a kiosk type of system, but we hopefully will have that up pretty soon, within the next several months.
Excellent. That's great news, Chief. And some of the residents at that building are very pleased with your efforts, your men and women out there in the field. And that's a good thing because we have been ramping up special events at Kerouac Park. So it's important we keep this safe, free from drug dealing and loitering and whatnot. And definitely, we're on the upswing there, Chief. Great job. So I appreciate all the efforts. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the Chelmsford Street improvements. Any discussion regarding the Chelmsford Street improvements? Council Leary.
Just quick, thank you for the report, I really appreciate it. I guess the obvious is it's a financial situation in terms of upgrading one of the main thoroughfares into the city, Route 110, coming in from Cross Point. Anything regarding, I guess one part, we talked about redoing the painting in that area too for the street. Is that part of the cost that's not obtainable right now? I know some of the areas about moving some of the infrastructure, some of the sidewalks, what have you, is something we'd have to plan for a later date. But the actual improvement, I know we spoke about lining it better, painting different things, and painting it a different way to make and allow for easier to and from, I guess, leaving the different stores that are on that street.
Yeah, but to make a really good crosswalk, you also have to make sure that you have the handicapped access to the sidewalks, and that's the additional cost that occurs
Well,
there.
no, I mean, I understand that, and I guess what the traffic engineer was articulating is just relining it, the street itself. I mean, I don't know if that's part of the plan, or is there a step process?
Oh,
could
can you
be-
come up for a moment?
That could be reviewed. I understand the infrastructure part of it, that's a challenge, and the problem, I think, is if you walk that street, there has been the different areas where there's been different crosswalks, and areas before that have simply not been kept up to date over time. Now, when you have the expansion of the Lowell overpass, which is articulated as a large expense, but you also have the improvements on Maycom, which are coming in, you have the significant increase in traffic, because as you know, as you walk that area, Mr. Manager, the Kronos area. But I think that's something that we spoke about, looking at different ways of making it easier by just realigning some of the painting, which could be at least initial step in easing some of that congestion. Thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely correct, Counselor. We'll do some, so the line striping, that can be a short-term solution. What we were trying to outline here is a bigger capital, sidewalks and more of an investment, but the line striping we'll try to do next spring.
First of all, I appreciate that. I think that's a good start to it, and will help alleviate a lot of some of the challenges that we're having there. As long as we follow up with the infrastructure over the next few years, that would be a great improvement. Thank you.
Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, I just want to commend you, not only this, but the improvements on Lawrence Street have been tremendous. I want to thank you and your administration for your efforts in that corridor, where the paving, the new sidewalks on either side, we rearranged the parking by only allowing it on one side of the street, which it was a cluster over there. It was very tight. So it cleared that issue up as well. It looks great aesthetically, crosswalks in place where they need to be. So I'm very pleased. I live in the neighborhood, and I know the neighborhood's very pleased to see it's an area that needed it very much, Mr. Manager. So again, thank you for your efforts. It's a great improvement there. That's appreciated very much by those residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to parking application. Any discussion regarding parking applications? Hearing none, we'll move on to Fowler Road. Any discussion concerning the Fowler Road report? We'll move on to the next one, which is the additional veteran tax exemptions. Any discussion regarding that, Councilman Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the administration, thank you for the information, and I certainly appreciate the additional information that you left at our desk this evening, and more importantly, that it's on the website so that our veterans can actually look this information up on our website. So thank you very much.
Councilor Elliott.
I think that's important that it's on the website so veterans do know that this additional assistance is available, and I think this council and administration has supported them. So anything we can do, to get this out, to send maybe even a mailing, Mr. Manager, to some of the veterans organizations, or, I don't know, just getting the information out to veterans. I know we have, Mr. LaMarche will do a great job, but it's really a good thing that the city continues to show that we support the veterans in any way that we can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to the corporate sponsorship of parks and open spaces. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, this has been a work in progress for some time. And from this report, it's rather extensive. I do appreciate the report, but things really are going so well on that front, where we're not getting many bids or responses for these corporate sponsors. Can you explain to the council a bit as to what's going on here, and what can we do to remedy this?
Well, first of all, we did put out an RFP and solicited invitation to advertise. That really isn't the best way to seek advertising. You really have to reach out to individual businesses to do that, but we don't have the wherewithal to do that, and probably in some instances it probably isn't proper for us to do that. One of the real problems that's happened with advertising is because of ESPN and 1 through 8, is there's so many sports on television right now, is that the crowds at the high school games have really gone down, and sometimes it's not the best bang for the buck for people who are looking to advertise, because there's not as many people there anymore as there once was. But with that said, we're looking right now to partner with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're really good at soliciting advertising, soliciting donations, and what we're going to have them do is to hopefully reach out to the different businesses and talk about different advertising opportunities throughout the facilities in Lowell, and then they will earn their fee through the advertising that they secure from the different businesses. But it has been difficult. But we'll continue to try and market it as best we can.
No, I understand the challenges, Mr. Manager. I mean, there's a business end to this as well. Now, if we expect a company to pay tens of thousands of dollars to have their name, they want people in that venue. And that's what's not working in our favor, where these youth sports, in some cases, aren't well attended. We're talking only a few hundred people, and sometimes less than that. In many instances, and that's not enough to gain a high value, if you will. So, but I do like your resolution here. This is what the CVB, their outreach, they have a database of businesses who do sponsor events. So I think that's a great solution, Mr. Manager, that could lead to some revenue for the city that is untapped. I mean, it may not be as much as we would like, but it's something is better than nothing. So I look forward to the future on this, and if there's any way I can help the Convention and Business Bureau and Tom in his venture, I'd be glad to chime in the future. But I think it's a good solution, Mr. Manager, as we look forward and find the opportunities to increase revenue. Now, with that being said, how about the larger venues now? We do have the Spinners Ballpark. I mean, there are people there. It's a good traffic location. How are we faring there as well as far as the sponsorship there?
That's the responsibility of the Spinners ownership to solicit the advertising at that stadium, and we'll be following up with Mr. Heller to see what their efforts are for the upcoming season at the ballpark.
Okay, great. Thank you for the report, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Council Milonazo.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, will the contract come back before the council for review and approval? Could you talk about negotiating a contract with the CVB? Will that contract come back to the council?
If it has to, yes, we will bring it back, yes.
Okay.
I'll at least report what,
Okay. 'Cause again, I'd just be curious to see what the fiscal
Right.
agent will be charging us, and I know it talks about the additional revenue would be used to maintain the parks and so forth, and obviously with some dollars from the city as well. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to an update on the feasibility of a combined maintenance department. Any discussion?
Just quick, first, thank you very much to the city manager and your team for following up on this. I appreciate it. This is probably the third coolest motion that I had in 2 years. Not the best motion. That would be Samaras and I had, Councilor Samaras and I, our go-to motion is that right-hand turn on Old Ferry Road. That's the coolest motion. I think this right here, if we put this together and it actually works, it'll save a lot of money, but also it'll actually have a lot of positive, really getting the work done that we all desperately want to have happen. But I thank you for at least taking those initiatives, and hopefully I'll actually pay attention to this in February when your report does come out, because it is something I think that will have high value. Thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. With this discussion, they're gonna talk about 2 different shifts too. Because you really need to have that second shift for the buildings, the library, the schools. That should be part of the discussion.
Yes, the Collins Center, representatives from the Collins Center were in Lowell yesterday, interviewing with all the departments involved. I talked to them, and everything is on the table. So, yes, that will be in there also.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
So, Mr. Mayor, just for the people at home that don't have access to this Gantt chart or the schedule. So December, you're going to continue with the budget analysis and the organizational structure and any potential changes to make this more of a streamlined process. And then in January, we'll receive that draft report, and then February, the final report. Is the draft going to be circulated to the council, or is that just an internal review before the final is issued?
It's internal first, because
Okay.
we've asked them to do all the negative reports also.
Right.
We want them to be brutally honest with us, so we want to review it internally first and decide what we have to address without releasing it publicly.
No, I think this is good. I think it's an aggressive schedule to finally get our arms around, this issue that I mean, they're very good motions, and it's long-standing problems. I think it's a move in the right direction to, to become more efficient in the way that we maintain and improve the school. So look forward to that report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Councilman Malinowski.
Just a quick question through you to the manager. Will we be providing the Collins Center with the collective bargaining agreements that deal with these issues? Okay.
Absolutely, because those are really the key issues that we have to resolve.
Right, and if we have a preventive maintenance program, both on the city side and the school side, they'd have that as well?
Right.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the communications from the city manager regarding motion responses and place them on file by Council Milonazo, second by Council Samaras. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Being shortly after 7 o'clock, we'll move back to the public hearings, and the first public hearing is regarding various sections of the zoning ordinance. If there's no objection, at the same time, we'll take up item 4.2, which is a communication from the planning board recommendations regarding an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts by amending various sections. Hearing no objection, we'll take those up simultaneously. We'll open the hearing for people who wish to speak in favor. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor? In favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is John Hamblett, 495 Varnum Avenue, and I'm co-chair of the Pawtucketville Citizens Council. On November 8th of last year, we started meeting with the City Council Subcommittee, Zoning Subcommittee, representatives from DPD and the Legal Department, as well as the City Manager. So over the last 13 months, there have been many changes made to the zoning amendments that are under consideration this evening. I'd like to thank Councilors Milonazo, Belanger, and Rourke, as well as those mentioned, Eric, Christine, and Mr. Manager, and their staff for their thoughtful consideration of our concerns. As you mentioned, just before Thanksgiving, I think the 20th of this year, Planning Board held a public hearing. Neither Deb Forgione, the chair, or I were able to attend. And at that meeting, as described to you in Christine's memo of November 27th, 3 additional amendments were recommended. It's my understanding that Eric Schlegel and Councilor Milonazo have recommended these 3 items in Ms. McCall's memo go back to the zoning subcommittee for further consideration. We strongly support that recommendation, and we ask that in addition to approving the remaining amendments, that you vote to return these 3 items for further discussion at the zoning subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the council. I'm Eric Slagle. I'm the Director of Development Services. As the council is aware, these zoning amendments, proposed zoning amendments, were collated both from internal staff amendments and amendments that were proposed by various city councilors. The staff worked very hard on this, and I believe that the subcommittee, in concert with the neighborhood groups, have gone through these amendments with fine-tooth comb and vetted them. I do believe that the planning board's recommendations on the three particular sections of the amendments deserve some further consideration, and I know that I believe that they're going to be returned to, or there's going to be a request that they get returned to the subcommittee, but I would recommend that the council approve the remaining amendments as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we'll suspend the hearing for the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? 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 Hearing none, we will suspend the hearing for those who wish to speak in opposition. Councilman Malinowski.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with my colleagues, especially those on the zoning subcommittee, I'd like to move that we continue the public hearing until December 12th and refer those three items from the planning board to the zoning subcommittee to meet next Tuesday at 5 or 5:30, whatever is good for the members of the committee.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Malinowski to suspend the hearing for 1 week and refer the three items considered by the planning board or recommended by the planning board to the subcommittee at 5:30 on that day. Second by Council Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if there's no objection, within these ordinance, item number 15, it's entitled Location and Layout of Parking Facilities. It's an amendment, and it reads, in the case of dormitory or a nonprofit educational institution, the required parking facilities may be provided on lots 1,500 feet away. The neighborhood organizations, and including myself, I'm a little concerned that we're going to allow, these structures to be built, and yet 3 or 4 blocks away, there's going to be allowed for parking, particularly as it relates to one project that is currently under consideration. And I think that needs to be vetted a little bit more. If we think that there's already parking problems in that particular area, and to allow a certain amount on a spot, one particular location, and then the rest 1,500 feet, people walking, they're not going. In my opinion, it's a tall order to ask. So I'd like to request, if there's no objection, that we refer, and it's item number 15, and it's amendment to 6.61, also to the zoning subcommittee.
Is it? No objection. Yeah. Okay.
That's not one of the three.
Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilor Elliott. This is a concern of mine as well. I mean, 1,500 feet from a project is substantial, to say the least, especially in inclement weather. And not only do they have to walk that distance, but they also have to pay. And what a resident is going to do by nature is try and park on the street to avoid that walk and cost. So I have the same sentiment as Councilor Elliott to really take a hard look at this, to make sure we're not putting large-scale projects where really the neighborhood can't handle it. So I think he's onto something well. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Council Mercia.
I'd like to state my concern on the ordinance to amend various sections of the zoning ordinance changes. I'm particularly concerned with number 15, entitled Location and Layout of Parking Facilities in the case of a dormitory, a nonprofit educational institution. The required parking facilities may be provided on lots 1,500 feet away, removing the words of not more than, thus allowing parking to be more than 1,500 feet away. This section, as amended, calls for the city to extend the distance for parking for dormitory students. Let me take you back to the owners of the property at the corner of Market and Cabot Streets in the Acres section of the city, who want to build a 7-story, 466-bed dorm, but they only have room for 93 parking spaces on the site, thus trying to sneak in this proposal to amend so that they can make it legal for students to park further away and infiltrate neighborhoods. They want to extend the distance at which qualifies students to park so that this project goes up. What students do you know that want to park further away? This zoning change does not fit the code. 40 people in the Acre neighborhood shot this proposal down, not once, but twice. Does the planning department know this? This is an attempt by the owners to sneak around the issue and slide this change in. Do you realize what this change will do for the Acre, to any other neighborhood? As it is, we already heard from neighbors on streets off of Middlesex Street where dorm students are parking all over the side streets on Livingston Avenue, etc., on all those side streets. Haven't we heard enough in the past, and we want to add more distance into the Acre? If anything, we should be amending this zoning code to reduce the distance, not add to it. I would almost feel that instead of just studying it, and I know we're going to come back to it again, I would almost like to make a motion to strike out this change and leave it as it is. That's my comments. And I think that we could do that. I'd like to make the motion that we strike out this change and leave it as it is.
Is there a second?
Yeah,
to
I'll
the
second for
motion?
discussion. I mean,
Second for discussion? Discussion.
maybe we could ask, what is the logic behind this particular amendment to allow this? I mean, it's just, we've got to include some common sense when it comes to this on a project of that magnitude. And what does this effect have on any other developments? I mean, it's almost like this, we're opening up this, this loophole so wide that, you can drive a truck through in order to get a project developed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what this amendment is. This amendment, regardless of the change, won't have any effect on the Fidelli proposal at the corner of Market and Cabot. Either way the distance is measured, that proposal is too far away from a public parking facility to qualify. So this is not, it wasn't put in, this was put in by staff long before this proposal came before the council. All this is doing is changing, it already says 1,500 feet in the existing zoning. All this is doing is changing it so that it's consistent, makes it clear that it's consistent with the rest of our zoning, that we're measuring it as the crow flies, from the entrance to entrance. That is the only thing that this change does. It is not making it longer. It is not making it more likely to have any impact on the proposal downtown. And again, I do want to make it clear, it makes it more enforceable because we have the ability to measure door to door on our GIS system as the crow flies, as opposed to along a traveled way. This is just for consistency. It is not put in by the Fidelli proponents, and it wouldn't have any impact on that project.
All right, before we get too far out of hand, there was a motion on the floor by Council Milonazo. That motion has been seconded.
Right.
So your motion is really an amendment to Council Milonazo's motion. We're already sending 4 items to the subcommittee and taking them up next week. We could add this and have 5 items that we take up next week, or we can vote on this amendment and see if it passes tonight. Councilor Elliott.
Well, I think Mr. Slagle's response gives reason to pause on this. If this is already in place in our zoning code, maybe we have to get an analysis, an explanation on how it's currently affected and how it could affect other zones or other issues in the city. So maybe we should just, maybe you're right, maybe we should send it there, Council Mercier, and get a thorough explanation on the.
Right, so it might be prudent, right, for you to withdraw your amendment with the consent of the second, and just add it on if there's no objection from Council Milonazo, and so that there'll be 5 items that would be considered at the subcommittee and voted on next week. What's your pleasure?
My pleasure was the motion, but if you feel that we could discuss it any further, and as far as the crows are flying, I don't know why we can't leave it as it is if it, I don't see it strengthening it. I think about the dorms that are along Middlesex Street and how they're so far away because there's not enough room to park in there, and they're parking all up on side streets and infiltrating neighborhoods. That's as the crow flies as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so would you like to withdraw the motion?
Yes, I'll withdraw it for the
You don't
sake
mind
of
withdrawing the
further
motion? Okay.
discussion.
And would you like it to be added on to the items that are taken up by the subcommittee next week?
Yes, yes, I would.
There's no objection by that, so the motion would be to consider all 5 items. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Mr. Slagle?
I just also wanted to mention that both counselors mentioned the same section, and that is the section that's number 2 in the planning board's recommendations. So it was already one of the 3 that's being sent back. That's the section that the planning board wanted to have reviewed.
Okay. Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another question for Mr. Slagle. Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Slagle. Now, I had concerns not only with the dormitory, but projects throughout the city, that, you know, this 1,500 feet. Now, how about if this project, let's just use the dormitory, for example, what if it happens to find, is able to lease surface parking within a reasonable distance? Does that fall within this amendment, Eric?
No, this talks about 1,500 feet from a public parking facility.
Public
The
parking
closest public parking facility is the AAC garage that is further than 1,500 feet from the location, no matter how you measure it. So regardless of what happens with this amendment, it will not affect that proposal, and there are no public parking facilities near the other dorms, and so this distance doesn't have anything to do with those with those facilities. So, but specifically for the former Jeanne d'Arc parcel, this section, either way it is measured, if you leave it the same or change it as we have proposed, will not allow that proposed project to use the AOT garage as its required parking.
Right, I understand. Okay, my concern, Eric, was again that they could circumvent that by leasing parking, finding an empty vacant lot somewhere and using that, but it's
No,
strictly public.
there are other sections that apply to that condition, but it's not 1,500 feet. That's.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Mr.
the
Mayor.
motion is to suspend the public hearing and to refer those matters to a subcommittee meeting. Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, look, I stand corrected, so, Councilman, it didn't have a reference to item number 15, it just went on to 6.1, so I stand corrected, it was included, so I thank you, I appreciate it, and my bad on that one.
Okay, and Councilor Samaras?
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. When we talk about that area, that's an area that parking is a major problem in that area. Many of our constituents have voiced their concerns. And the addition of this, the potential addition of this dormitory is just going to exacerbate the situation. But, Mr. Manager, I asked for a report on parking for that area. Could we have that report at the same time we have the subcommittee meeting, so it would just give us further information to help with the discussion? Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? So voted. Thank you, Mr. Slagle. The next public hearing is to abandon a portion of Montreal Street. So for the second reading is to vacate, discontinue, and abandon certain public interest rights and easements in a portion of Montreal Street in the city of Lowell. We'll open up the hearing for those who wish to speak in favor. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Close the hearing. Go ahead.
I'm Joe Dussault, the president of the VFW. By using this abandonment on Montreal, it's going to help the VFW in our parking spaces, and it's going to help the people with the garages on the left-hand side, because the original plan was to put sidewalks on the opposite side of the street. So this way, they will not come up here and give the council a hard time or give the city a hard time, because we're working with the city to make it easy for both of us. And so we will take a sidewalk on our side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up to those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, in opposition, in opposition. close the hearing and open it to the city council. The chair would entertain a motion to refer this to the city clerk's office for 7 days. We have
So
a motion
moved.
to that effect by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Leahy. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The last public hearing of the evening is to adopt the minimum residential factor for fiscal year 2018, which is it is voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: to adopt the minimum residential factor of 0.858187% for fiscal year 2018, which will shift the share of the levy to the commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. We'll open up the hearing for those who wish to speak in favor. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Close the hearing on behalf of the proponents and open it up for those who wish to speak in opposition. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition, in opposition, in opposition. Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on behalf of the opponents and open it up to the City Council. Do we have a motion to approve by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Milonazo? Discussion on the motion. Councilor Elliott.
Could we just, again, I know we do this every year, and it's important, I just think it's important for the people at home to know and realize that we do have two tax rates here, and we do our best, and we ensure that the greatest burden, I know the businesses sometimes aren't so happy, but we try to keep the residential taxes as low as we can, and how we do that is to shift the property valuation. I guess the other good news is that property values are very strong in the city, and they continue to grow. And I think that's a sign of a number of things, certainly good fiscal strength, and people's property values continue to rise. That's good. You know, the flip side is we have to keep taxes down. What is it? Anything else you want to add, Mr. Manager? I mean, it's important for people to know that, you know, the long and the short of it is property values are strong. They're growing because it's an attractive place to live, and real estate is strong.
I'd like Mr. Baldwin just to explain what the result of adopting the minimum residential factor would be for the residential taxpayers of the city.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. The minimum residential factor, the number that the council will vote on tonight, represents the maximum shift away from the residential class. So the number that's on the vote, 0.85, et cetera, represents that mathematical calculation to shift it away. And Lowell has done this, shifted the burden away from the residential class since about 1984. So as Councilor Elliott pointed out, the residential values are increasing. They went up by about $574 million this year. Overall, the total valuation of the city. We just recently had our new growth certified this year of $2.4 million, an indicator of economic development throughout the city. And then later on the agenda, the council will be considering a vote to declare, to appropriate the overlay surplus, which will help to further keep that tax burden down for the residents.
Mr. Baldwin, could you just explain the new growth? That is a strong indicator that I think we need to just let the folks at home know how good things are going. That's 2.4 million of new valuation, new growth, new businesses, new homes, new additions, correct?
That's exactly right. So that represents all value in fiscal 2018 that was not there before in all classes. So those are new buildings as well as, you know, additional additions, renovations to people's homes, et cetera. But that number, which is certified by the Department of Revenue, indicates that the economy in Lowell and the valuation continues to grow.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Belanger.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Leary.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Samaras.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
That concludes the public hearings. Returning to the agenda, we're at item 4.3, which is a communication to appoint Marie L. Ilano to the Hunger Homeless Commission. Chair would entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Leary. Discussion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, Maria Elena is here, if she wanted to come up and introduce herself.
Hello. Hi, my name is Marie Eleanor. I would like to just say thank you to the council. Thank you to for appointing me, and I am a straight believer in getting involved, making a big difference, and I thank Council Elliott for getting me involved, and I'm looking forward to serve the city of Lowell.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote to accept the easement from John Darling for access to all utilities in a portion of Newell Street. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading. Authorizing the city manager to accept an easement from John F. Darling to the city of Lowell to allow for access for all designated utilities to maintain, repair, change, or reroute all sewer lines, drains, water, electrical, telephone, cable, and gas lines at or under said abandoned area. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Council Leary, second by Council Belanger. Discussion on the motion, roll call.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
Yes, just a quick question. Why does the first paragraph or sentence say that Mr. Dowling is a married man? I've never seen that on a document like this before. Is there a reason for that? It was what?
We didn't draft this.
Oh, okay. Okay. I
He's
hope
just a proud married man.
a proud married man. Okay. Okay, that's good. Thank you, John. Okay. Thank you.
Roll call.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott. Yes. Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next is a vote to transfer $2,100,000 certified in surplus as the overlay to reduce the FY 2018 tax levy. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading to transfer amount certified by the Board of Assessors as surplus in the overlay to reduce the 2018 tax levy. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Belanger. Discussion, Council Milonazo.
Just a quick question on the going to, where it talked about unreserved FB overlay surplus. What does FB stand for? I know I should know, but what is that?
Fund balance.
Fund balance, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott. Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next is order to abandon a portion of Newell Street. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading. And the chair would entertain a motion to refer it to a public hearing on January 9, 2018 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to that effect by Councilor Samaras, seconded by Councilor Rourke? Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under subcommittee reports, I don't believe there are any subcommittee reports this evening. The chair would entertain a motion to bundle items 7.1 through 7.6, which are all the same. We have a motion to that effect by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Leary. So hearing no objection, the motion would be to take those items, which are all National Grid, request permission for one pole at the corner of Pawtucket Merrimack Street, National Grid, permission to install one stub pole and anchor at 590 Pine Street, National Grid, permission to install one pole and 10 feet of conduit on East Merrimack Street and Park Street. National Grid requests permission to install one pole and 30 feet of conduit at 357 Pawtucket Street. And Comcast requests permission to install an underground conduit manhole at 43 Market Street. And Externet Systems Incorporated requests permission of telecommunication wires on a pole located at Bridge and French Streets. We have a motion to accept the accompanying order by Council Milonazo, second by Council Samaras. Discussion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Just oppose for me.
What's that?
Oppose for me.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, under petitions, we have a request for reimbursement of a towing charge. Chair would entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation by Council Leary, second by Council Leahy. Discussion on the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is a petition from National Grid, Verizon, request permission to install a stub pole at the corner of West Genes and Rexford Street. Chair would entertain a motion referred to a public hearing on January 9, 2018 at 7 p.m. by Council Leary, second by Council Milonazo. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, City Council motions. There are four motions on this evening. The first motion is by Council Elliott. Request that the City Manager provide a report regarding free cash for fiscal year ending June 30th and discuss using a portion to reduce taxes. Second by Council Belanger. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is good news that, at the end of the year that we asked for this report to see exactly where we are. And I know that there is, maybe you can just explain this, there's approximately $5 million, Mr. Manager, that has been identified as unreserved fund balance. Is that correct?
The final figures have not been certified by the Department of Revenue, but our estimates from the auditor is that it's in the vicinity of $5 million.
All right. Well, I think that's good news, and I know we have some obligations. I know there's some stabilization money that we used, and that should be replenished. I completely support that. But I also think that when there is a surplus, and just for folks to know, it's a result of conservative projections when we put our budget together and watching spending and watching expenses and making sure that while we do budget for it, if there's not a need for it, then we don't use it. And I think that's important. I think it's a good message. I'll look forward to the report. But I also think it's important that we keep the taxpayers in mind. And when there is a surplus, I think our reserves are solid. They're stable. And, we do raise taxes, and when we do have money, I think it's important for us to use as an option to give some back to the taxpayers. So to me, we're financially stable. We continue to be financially stable, and when we have an opportunity. I mean, I know there's many other projects that require funding, but I think other communities have had this approach, and I think that we should follow suit to some degree, to some extent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Elliott. Request that the city traffic engineer determine if the traffic signals at the intersection of Mammoth Road and 4th Avenue in front of the McAvenue School can be changed to the type that have a flashing white strip in the center, similar to those on the Pawtucket Boulevard at Camelot Court, Campus Pavilion. Seconded by Council Leary. Council Elliott.
Thank you. This came from a number of folks. It was actually on Election Day, Mr. Manager. And I went through, I described it as best as I could for my colleagues. Just when folks were standing there all day, when the button was pressed across the street, people either it wasn't registering with people, or they weren't cognizant or cautious enough because they were just going right through that red light. So I know when you cross the VFW at Sampson Pavilion as well as the Camelot Court, there are lights, and they're very visible because there is a white bar that flashes, and it catches your attention. So I think if we can look at that intersection, it's becoming more and more heavily traveled, and I don't want to say it's an accident waiting to happen, but to prevent it, all day people standing there on numerous occasions during Election Day, people saw people going through that red light. So I don't want to belabor the issue, but I think it's important that we take a look at it and put something a little bit better, better technology that'll work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Council Leahy.
Thank you. That is a dangerous intersection, and as Council Elliott said, all day long, people, they just don't pay attention to it anymore. So something dramatically needs to happen over there to wake people up. Right after school starts, they're flying through there right after school. It's dangerous for everybody crossing. So if we could even redesign it or something, really take a good look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Council Mercier. Request that the city manager ask the Lowell Memorial Auditorium Board of Trustees to possibly communicate with the president of the tenant council at Father Norton Manor on High Street when there is a large event held during the day, so that Father Norton Manor may make arrangements for needed parking for caregivers arriving at the apartments. Seconded by Council Leary. Council Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is in regards to people that receiving care. And when there's big events at the auditorium in the daytime, such as citizenship and different other events, people tend to park off onto the streets, and people that live at Father Norton Manor are waiting for their caregivers who are unable to find a parking spot. If they would know in advance that a big event was coming, they could probably arrange with their caregivers to then come another day. So it would be like a coordinated effort so that the tenant council presidents and all that board can notify the residents when there will be big events so they can arrange with their caregivers to come another day. I think it's only a matter of convenience and cooperation. That's what it's all about. So that's the purpose of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The final motion of the evening is by Counselor Leary. Request that City Manager review the feasibility of adding Park Avenue to the street paving list. Seconded by Counselor Leahy. Counselor Leary.
Speaks for itself, except for it's Faux Street, not Avenue, so my fault. I think
Okay.
I go down it 10,000 times. I think I know the name of the street. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. If there are no announcements, the Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes, Counselor Samaras.
I have an announcement. The Cambodia Mutual Assistance Association is going to have a free showing of the movie, First They Killed My Father. This movie will be held at the Lowell High School Cyrus Irish Auditorium on this Saturday, on December 9th at 2 p.m. It's free to the public, and it's a great film, and I think this is something that people would enjoy to see. They have an understanding of the issues that many of the Cambodian families faced. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further announcements? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, all opposed, stand adjourned.
Drove a little bit.
Can we talk in the morning? Yeah. Okay. What,